Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Gumbel at the anchor desk with my partner Clark Kellogg, bringing you the 2K Sports Season Preview Show. Here are the Big Five, the top teams in the country as we begin the season. The North Carolina Tar Heels come in as the #1 ranked team, followed by Kansas, Duke, Ohio State, and Memphis. Anything jump out at you from those top 5 teams, Clark?
Those are some terrific teams, Greg, and the thing I find most fascinating about the top 5 is the number of contrasting styles we see here. These teams couldn't be more different, and I love when we have that kind of diversity at the top of the poll.
The North Carolina Tar Heels are projected as the favorites here in the early going. Their total of 31 wins last season was remarkable.
Winning that many games again is going to be extremely difficult, no matter how much talent they have. Not many teams play that many games, never mind win that many. They'll be on the verge of dynasty status if they repeat that performance.
Kansas is in the #2 spot. They had a nice finish to the year, but it ended with a disappointing loss in the regional final.
They were so close to the Final Four they could taste it. And the memory of that Elite 8 loss should be all the motivation they need this year to work just that little bit harder. We'll see if they can get over the hump this time.
Duke comes in as #3. They had a terrific record last season, finishing with 22 wins.
That 20-win plateau is one of those benchmarks in college hoops that immediately classifies you as an elite team. So they're going to have a tough act to follow. But if they simply play to their potential, they can reach that mark again.
Ohio State starts the year as the 4th-ranked team. They're in one of the power conferences, Clark. You think they'll be able to withstand the tough schedule?
Their regular season is going to be a melee with all the other tough teams in the conference. The key for them to survive is going to be consistency. They can't afford to drop any easy games.
Memphis is the #5 team. There's a lot of talk about what a close-knit group of players this team has.
The idea of team chemistry is often discounted. But if you saw this team play last season, it's more than just a concept to them. I expect that team-first attitude to carry over and be a big part of another successful year.
Here's the next group of teams in our preseason top 25. What's your impression of that set of teams?
The upside of these teams far outweighs the downside. Expect at least half of these teams to finish the season in the top 10, and 1 or 2 of them have a chance to be right at the top.
The Pittsburgh Panthers, the #11 team, have stirred up a lot of talk in the offseason. They wrapped up their season last year with a trip to the Sweet 16, but it ended there.
A similar result this year probably won't satisfy them. They've got the potential to go a step beyond the Sweet 16, so just getting back there is going to be a disappointment, not an achievement.
The Louisville Cardinals, the #13 team, have also generated a lot of interest. This school has developed a reputation for having some of the most rabid fans in college hoops.
Walking into their building is going to be a tough proposition for a lot of their opponents. They can get that place rocking, and I wouldn't be shocked if they lose very few, if any, games at home this season.
Okay, Clark, let's take a look at the teams that close out the preseason top 25 poll. What do you think of this collection?
I'm not convinced that all of these teams belong in the top 25. I don't want to pick out anyone in particular, but I think some teams that aren't on the list could make a pretty strong case as to why they belong here.
The UCLA Bruins, the #18 team, probably deserve a closer look. Everything with them starts with the men at the top, the coaches, and that's a pretty good place to start.
This coaching staff is really highly respected. They always squeeze every drop of talent out of their squad, and I'll bet they do it again this year. I don't know if they'll overachieve necessarily, but they'll definitely live up to their potential.
The Maryland Terrapins, the #19 team, are also worth keeping an eye on. They're ranked where they are because it's almost impossible to find anything wrong with this team.
Nearly every team has an Achilles heel or a weakness, but this team is so well balanced, they're going to be a tough matchup for anybody.
We now head to the part of the show where we break down the top players in the nation and show you our preseason All-American list. What you see before you is the cream of the crop in college hoops. What a list. What's your take on the first teamer at the top of the list, Clark?
Fredette is a force to be reckoned with, Greg. He exploits every opponent weakness and then uses his skill to dominate games. No matter what, he'll find a way to get the job done and lead his team to victory.
As for our next first-teamer, Duke is more than willing to go into battle with him, Clark.
Smith is really something special, Greg. There's plenty to like about him as a player. He's got that deadly combination of smarts and physical skills that makes him so difficult to defend. A coach's mentality in the body of a world-class athlete. Any questions as to why he's on the list?
Next up is a player that's drawing comparisons to some of the all-time college greats. The North Carolina Tar Heels are fortunate to have him in their corner.
Barnes is a first-teamer without a doubt. He has such versatility. He can take it and rake it, get down the court with the ball and make plays. He'll be a nearly impossible matchup for their opponents.
Let's move on to a player who's worked very hard to earn his spot on the list. The Arizona Wildcats can depend on a solid effort from him each and every night.
Williams is the anchor of his team, and if they're going to the promised land, he's the one that's going to lead them there. We always talk about the guys with great hands. Well, he's got great feet. I love those happy feet. There are few players in the nation with better footwork than him, and that's what allows him to always be in the right position, whether it comes to rebounding or finding space for an open shot.
And finally, we have another superb player to round out the first team. The Ohio State Buckeyes will probably get used to seeing him make the impossible look ordinary.
Sullinger already has opposing coaches drawing up game plans designed to stop him, but it won't matter what they come up with. Give him too much room and he'll burn you off the dribble. Or play him tight and watch him find a teammate for an easy hoop. One way or the other, he's unstoppable.
Now let's move on to the second team All-Americans. Not such a bad list, huh? These elite players all have the potential to have historic seasons if the right pieces fall into place. The Duke Blue Devils have built their team around this young man's talent, and I'd say that's a pretty good idea.
Number one was a very hard player to leave off the first team. If I had to pick some front runners for the Player of the Year award, he would be right there on the list. I've seen him take over games even when he isn't scoring 30. There are some great scorers among these All-Americans, and he's one of them, but he does much more than score.
Our next player is a tremendous talent in his own right. Georgetown is in for a treat if he can pull it all together and have a great year.
Frey is someone you could look at as last season progressed and see his improvement on a weekly basis. I have no doubt he belongs on this All-American team, and I think the sky's the limit for him this season.
We can expect to see some amazing performances out of him all year long. The Duke Blue Devils are looking for a lot of production from him, and they probably won't be disappointed.
Singler has terrific skill in so many facets of the game. It isn't out of the realm of possibility to say that he might even be a little bit underrated. I know it seems far-fetched to say that about a preseason All-American pick, but I'm not sure people realize just what a huge year he's in for, Greg.
Our next All-American may have designs on the first team by the end of the season. Kansas has one of the most reliable go-to guys in the country in him.
Morris was one of the first players that came to mind when I was thinking of the top 10 players in the nation. The success of his team rests directly on his shoulders, and I believe he has the ability to take them all the way to the title.
Here is the final player to cap off our list of All-Americans. The Purdue Boilermakers know who their fan favorite is going to be this year.
Johnson is last but not least on the All-American list. His upside is higher than a lot of the other guys here because he has so much raw ability. He could jump to the first team this year if he harnesses all that ability into the complete package.
All right, Clark, thanks very much. Glad you could join us for the 2K Sports Season Preview. We hope you enjoy all the college hoops action ahead. So long, everyone.